Welcome to Exploring Your Society. I'm your host, Sean Bowman.
Mikey B. So we always have to have some weird topic to talk about before we bring our guest on. And I have the perfect one, Sean.
All right.
So I was working out beforehand, and I work out in my basement. And my cat was like loafing. You know how cats loaf and they like get all big and puffy? She's just staring at me. So I took a picture and sent it to a couple of my friends. And my one friend responded like, looks like she's judging you. And I'm like, yeah, she probably like thinks like I'm so weak and stuff. But then I always wondered, like with pets, do you think like pets always view you as like almost like a parent? Or do you think that sometimes like they view you as like a partner, like in a sexless marriage?
You know, I'm not a big pet person for one.
That's true. That's true. You got some bad experiences with some puppies.
They're my redheaded stepchild. That's what my pets
yeah, they know their place. I always wonder, what's my cat thinking? You know, she's staring at me like, you know, sometimes we spoon in bed. Like, is she thinking I'm like her dad? Like, or am I like, you know, her man?
Her cat daddy.
Her cat daddy, you know? Anyways, we can bring our dude on.
So who's our guest tonight?
Mr. Ryan O'Shea.
Hello.
What's up, buddy?
He's like, I'm done with her shit already.
Yeah, I'm surprised you weren't just gone after we had that conversation.
No, I mean, you started off pretty normal. I would say, I'll answer your question though. I have a dog and a cat. I have a golden retriever, Arthur, and a cat named Winston. And I would say that they definitely probably see me as like one of them. Like they don't recognize me as different, but I'm definitely like the alpha dog in the household. So like they're subservient, but I think we're just buds and we hang out together. I think that's probably how they see me.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it for sure. The leader of the pack. All right, let's talk about other things besides if our pets want to bang us.
They're probably going to eat you when you die. Mikey's just going to be dead in the house and Katniss is going to eat him.
Probably. I'll come back and haunt her ass though. So Ryan, you know, obviously we know you're, you know, the live stream expert, videographer, the man of amazing lighting, as you can tell by his background. Tell us about like some of the stuff you do with videography and other projects that you've done and are working on.
Yeah, I think my background and what I specialize in the paranormal is really doing the videography, particularly live streaming and editing. That's what my background is in. I've worked professionally in the film industry. I've done podcasts and videos. I've hosted videos. I've worked for WTAE, which is the ABC television affiliate in Pittsburgh, doing a lot of video and hosting for them. So that's what my background is in. And I really bring that to the paranormal when I'm doing what I do. Especially, you know, everyone has cameras that they can run in the paranormal, but some of these locations are in the middle of the nowhere. There's no internet service. They're often like prisons or asylums with multiple feet thick brick walls. And we are in the basement. So it is particularly hard to live stream from these locations. As many of you may know, if you've tried to do it from your phones or tried to watch a live stream online. So I have really invested thousands in the equipment necessary to do high quality, consistent live streams where we can go live pretty much from anywhere for hours at a time. And that's really what I focus on in the paranormal. So of course I do the investigations as well. But I think that's the skill set that I kind of bring to the table. And that all started for me really with skateboarding in middle school and high school. That's when I started picking up cameras and filming myself and filming my friends, doing that kind of stuff. That led to me going to the University of Pittsburgh, where I majored in film and communications with a minor in history. And history is another passion of mine. So that's why I love going to these old historic locations. And after college, after I graduated from Pitt, I moved out to Los Angeles and worked in the film and television industry out there for an MTV series called The Buried Life. So I did some associate producing for them, ended up moving to Washington, D.C. area, where I worked on Capitol Hill. And then I eventually came back to my hometown area of Pittsburgh because of what I saw happening in the area in terms of startups and entrepreneurship. I'm very entrepreneurial myself, and I ended up getting more involved with the paranormal here. So that's where I found out my path to where I am now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
That is
actually
awesome.
used to do the skateboard videos too. I'm sure yours were very well done, while mine were just my idiot friends.
Now, did you skateboard too, Ryan, or just shoot
Yeah, I was a
videos?
skateboarder. It's really interesting with the skateboard culture because I don't know if you were like aware of this, Mikey, but like everyone had this love obsession with like the VX1000, which is like a camera from the 90s, but it's what all those very impressive like quintessential skate videos were filmed on in the 90s, and it just has that like skater aesthetic where people put the giant fisheye on the lens on there,
Yeah.
where you see like the black around the edges, and it's like a grainy like VHS type camera, but it just was like iconic in skateboarding. So while I was like trying to like upgrade to like 4K and stuff, all of my friends were like, no, you gotta get the VX1. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Definitely
No.
reminds me of like Jackass and stuff. Like
That's
that.
what I was just gonna say. Did
That's
you?
the
My
exact
buddies
cameras
and I
they
were
use
like
for that,
really
yeah.
inspired by Jackass. Is
That's
that?
the exact cameras they use for that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, did you do stunts and stuff too, like when Jackass was coming out?
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course I did. Yes. I grew up on, I mean, even pre Jackass, like CKY, Camp Kill Yourself.
Yeah.
That was my stuff right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the most ridiculous thing that you can share that you did as far as like a stunt or anything?
I mean, it was really just a lot of like putting our bodies in harm's way, like jumping off of ridiculous stuff into trees and bushes, or I don't know, climbing things. It was not safe. I don't know how I've never broken a bone and got seriously injured or anything like that, but I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty wild.
So you haven't broken a bone?
Never in my life.
Yeah, me either. And I have no clue either because I
Well,
did the same crazy stuff.
I broke two
I
bones in my
say that
leg.
there was a
sled
period there where I really messed up my ankle skateboarding, but I never went to the doctor or anything. But like a few months later, I was eventually like able to walk without a limp. I may have broken something then. If I did, I didn't get it checked out.
Yeah, it'll fix itself.
Yeah.
riding.
So what was you transitioned to the paranormal. What was like your first paranormal experience that kind of led you to that, I guess?
Yeah, I grew up in New Brighton in Beaver County, which is about an hour north of Pittsburgh, along the Beaver River there, which is part of the Ohio River system. And the house I grew up in was part of the Underground Railroad. It was built in 1848 and was a safe house for people coming north to flee slavery. It is directly across the street from the Merrick Art Gallery, which is an art gallery, art museum in New Brighton, which at the time was a train station. So slaves would come up on the train, and then they would go underneath a secret tunnel, which is rumored to exist, connecting the art gallery to my house. And then they would seek asylum basically in my house, which at the time kind of served as a hotel. So that's the legend around my house. And a lot of that is verified. There's a historical marker there. It is a part of the New Brighton Underground Railroad walking tour. You can come check it out. They recently did discover some tunnels underneath the Merrick Art Gallery. So these rumors about the tunnels may be true. I definitely need to go do some digs around my house. I still own that property up there. So I need to go check that out. And I really want to investigate that more. But growing up, my house was the one, you know how every town has that house that all the school kids are like, there's the haunted house.
Yeah, the witch's house or whatever. Yeah.
That was my house. My house was the haunted house. And like, it was a legend in town, and I lived there, and I definitely experienced some stuff there. Footsteps, just feelings that I got, hearing things. So that's what really got me into the paranormal from a very early age. So growing up with that really got me interested in it. And I'm a skeptic, right? I think any individual experience that I have is very unlikely to be a ghost. There's a million other things that it could be that are more likely than that, including just me being completely crazy and imagining the whole thing. But there's so many stories and legends around my house that I have to believe part of it. And I remember one point when I was very young, I was with my grandmother, and we were out with her friends, and she ran into the people that used to own my house before we lived there. And this was decades and decades and decades before. They were old as well. And they were talking to my grandmother and said, did you ever have any spooky experiences there, see any ghosts? And they were going to tell stories, or many stories perhaps, of their experiences there. And then they looked over and saw me, and I was very young. And they said, well, we'll talk about it another time, because they didn't want to say it in front of me. But I wish they would have shared their stories, because this is something that's apparently been around for a long time.
Yeah, that's wild. Do you think that's also what got you into being so passionate about history too, was just living in a historical place?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really love learning the stories of these places. One of the best things about the paranormal that I think a lot of people don't give it credit for is what the paranormal community does to preserve and protect historical landmarks in the places that would fall into disrepair or be torn down if it wasn't for this community that goes out and supports it with ghost hunts and investigations and photo shoots and videos. All of that stuff supports these historic landmarks that desperately need our help, and we don't want to lose these places. So that's one of the reasons that I'm super passionate about what I do.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the like historical places around here, like we always have trouble getting into them, and it's like, we could help you raise money, we could bring in people, and they just, I don't know, they just don't want nothing to do with it. I mean, they just shun the paranormal community, but I mean, it's, you want to save the buildings, like we're giving you a way to save the building, Yeah,
it seems like Pittsburgh, I don't know if it's like a closed-mindedness, just a bit like piggyback off that. But like you look at Ohio, there's so many places you can go to investigate. We can pay to investigate. You go to West Virginia, same thing. You go to East Pennsylvania, you get that. But it's like just the Pittsburgh area. It's just, I don't know. I know there was a lot of gatekeepers that are kind of out of the field now too. So that might open up things for other people. But that's another unfortunate part about the field.
Yeah, another thing that I really want to do more going forward in the paranormal is reach out to some of those places that just have never been investigated before and try to get in there as the first time to really look at the things that haven't been seen much before. There's so many places in the area, in Pittsburgh and beyond. I mean, everywhere in the country has these places that are kind of like museums or historical sites or just old buildings that would be great to get in and investigate. And instead of going to the same, 100 some locations that are very well known that everyone goes to, let's spread it out a little bit. Let's go to some new places.
Yeah, I agree. I think this summer, I definitely want to hit some, and also like the local legend places. I definitely want to hit up a lot more of those unknown. So we'll have to make some plans to do some crazy weird stuff.
Absolutely. Well, definitely. Almost every weekend I'm out going to some places and investigating and exploring. A lot of that is related to paranormal. A lot of that's related to just legends and folklore and cryptids and the history that happens there. So there's so much to get out and explore, and you never run out of places to go.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of the like unexplored type places are the ones where you have the most activity at too. Because I know there's been numerous places we've been to before we didn't think anything was going to happen, and it ends up being the craziest night.
Yeah. I wish it was easier to like kind of vet residential places, because I feel like those have the potential to kind of be like that surprise, like holy crap. Because I've investigated some residentials because I have some family in like the construction company, so that opens that up, so you don't have to worry about the vetting process because no one lives there. But I've had some other experiences where you're doing residentials and it's like, oh my God, this is wild. So
yeah, I typically try to stick to commercial properties or like abandoned properties.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I find with the residential is that you're oftentimes not just dealing with whatever paranormal entities may or may not be there, but you're dealing with the energies of the people themselves, and you hope that they have, a good head on their shoulders and know what they're dealing with and talking to. Because a lot of times you might end up dealing with just a person that has some problems rather than a building or a property that has some problems.
Yeah. And that's the case a lot of the times. I still try to help them, to like try to get them to, seek the proper, channels to get that help, and, just occasionally check up on them and kind of encourage them. Like, I think what the main thing you need to do is obviously get, professional help, but also I think you just need to get out of the house, like, and do stuff, like just escape it. And that's the hard part. And I did feel for a while like I wanted to do like a psychological type of thing where it's like doing these residential cases and not only, you know, looking for the paranormal, but also trying to help these people. But it's so much. It really is. Unless you can do it full time, like you're just gonna have them reaching out to you all the time. It's really difficult.
Yeah, one thing that I'm kind of deeply involved with, separate from the paranormal, is I'm really big into science and technology, and I've worked with a group here in Pittsburgh called Grindhouse Wetware that does kind of like do-it-yourself human augmentation. So this is like people like basically becoming cyborgs themselves by putting technology into their bodies, which is great. Like people are doing like RFID chips and magnet implants and lights and cool things like that. But
There you go,
being
Mike.
in
You
that
put that spirit
industry,
box in you.
being in that industry, one of the things that happens is like people that think they've been tagged or tracked or chipped by the government are constantly reaching out to us and like, this is real. You know, I have x-rays, the government's tracking me or my neighbor's tracking me. And it's like, no, here's the channels you need to go to get help and support. There's nothing we can do for you. You just need to go to a professional. So like I've been dealing with that for a long time, whether it's in paranormal or not. Yeah. And you really unfortunately do see that in the paranormal. You really need to be careful of who you're dealing with and what's going on with them, because that is something you unfortunately encounter.
Yeah. Well, I think with the paranormal in general, like there's a stigma of, you know, mental health and conspiracies and all that type of stuff, you know, in general.
There absolutely is. I please call me out if you think that I am doing something that is not right, because I want to make sure that my head's on straight too.
Dude, if we're calling you out, then, you know, you must be doing something wrong. So you do crazy amount of urban exploring. You know, obviously we're all friends on Facebook and, you know, in real life too, but we see like, it's like every day I see you posting like some crazy location that you're doing. How do you find a lot of these places?
So a lot of it is looking at places like Atlas Obscura is a very good place to start, going to their website and looking at the map there. But that's only going to show you the more popular and well-known ones. You really need to, what I often do is just go to like Google Maps and just explore and just start scrolling and searching. And I see a weird shape on the map, or I see something. I'm like, what is that thing? I need to go out there and find out what that actually is. And I have a VR headset, which actually helps with this a lot, because I go to like Google Earth and VR, and I can actually like move it around in 3D and see the topography, and that helps find some of those things. But online is a great resource, and I try to like surround myself with people who are finding great things as well. So I follow a lot of like TikTok accounts, for example, or Instagram accounts of people that are doing similar things and sharing those locations as well. So I love finding new places to go, and the issue now is I've pretty much done everywhere within like 2 hours of my home. So anytime I want to go explore, it's like a full-on day trip or a weekend trip somewhere, and it's so long.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of the tools you were saying the other day when I was talking to you is use the Pokemon app to find stuff sometimes.
Yeah, you gotta out me on the internet here, Sean. Yes.
I thought it was only like young kids and like 50-year-olds that play Pokemon still.
Well, I am one of the Pokemon players. Ask me for my code. I will friend you. No, yeah. One great tool for reason of using the Pokemon app, which I actually use quite often, is if I'm, for example, in a graveyard or in a town looking for a cool old site or a historical thing, or I know there's a famous person buried here, but I can't find the grave, pull up the Pokemon app, and there's a good chance that the place you're looking for is a Pokestop, and you can see it on the map and just click it and know exactly where it is and see a picture of it. It's extremely helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm seriously about to like re-download. I used to have the app. I'm about to re-download it and check it out for sure.
Another thing I've used, it kind of helped me like to find Darmine initially, because it was kind of hard to locate, but I was able to find the coordinates. Was the Flickr?
I did the same exact thing.
Yeah,
you're probably looking at the same exact Flickr images.
Yep. That's a good one to do too. I always hate it when they don't share the location though. It's like, damn it.
Yeah, you encounter that a lot where people post some great space and everyone asks where it is, and they're like, we don't share locations. And there's some like justification that I can see for that. You of course want to preserve the integrity of the place. You don't want people to go there and, you know, graffiti it or have parties and litter or destroy it. Some people just go out to like light things on fire and destroy stuff, which I can't stand. So there is some reason to protect these places that I can understand. But at the same time, you know, they're there to be enjoyed. They're there to be explored. I am more than happy to share many of the locations that I've been to and let people know how to get there, as long as I know that they're going to be respectful of the place.
Yeah.
Now, going back to your skating days, did you ever skate any of these abandoned places?
I have been in some abandoned places and skated. Yes, that has happened. They're not typically the best because they're kind of like dirty and there's broken glass and there's all kinds of stuff places that don't make for the best skate environment. But when we did go to these places, we'd often take like push brooms with us or even some like quick concrete, and like we're like rebuilding the place as we go to make sure that it's skatable. So we're cleaning up the place as we go.
Yeah, the homeless guys show up and they're like, damn, someone who hired the maid here.
Yeah. I try not to get arrested. Like my rule number one is like whatever you do, just don't get arrested. So I try to avoid like, I obviously like tried to go to places that were safe to go into, and I wasn't like on too much private property or breaking the law or anything. I didn't want to be destructive or violate anyone's property rights. So I was very mindful of that. And that's one of the reasons the paranormal was so great, because it's one of the only ways that you can get into some of these places legally and explore and stay the whole night and be allowed to be there. So that's one of the reasons, of course, that draws me to the paranormal.
So what's like, because you do a lot of urban exploring, what's the weirdest thing that you've encountered? Because I always think like if you go into like an abandoned building, like were you ever in a situation, whether human, like other, you saw other humans or animals, like what was the sketchiest, I guess, thing that you came across? Because I know you posted that like, one in a bear in a mine that one time that was hibernating, I think.
That a bear in a mine is pretty intense. Yeah, I would definitely say that's up there for sure. No, I mean, I think people are definitely like the sketchiest thing to encounter anywhere, especially because you don't know what their motivations are or what they're doing. There's definitely been some places where if I think there's an animal or something spooky or paranormal in there, I'm probably going to go in. If I think there's a human in there, I'm not going to that place.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Bears kind of freak me out though too. That's another one of my bugaboos, I guess, is you see a bear, it's like
me and Jen got chased by a bear before.
Yeah, but you guys asked for it. You guys asked for it. You went to the like, bear capital.
Tell me to like she was telling me to throw a steak at it. I was like, I ain't throwing my steak at that bear.
Yeah.
Gotta fight me for my steak.
You're a big bear yourself. You probably could have body slammed that thing, man. So what would you say? I mean, obviously videography is like, seems like it's, your main passion. But as far as like urban exploring or paranormal, which one would you say is more your thing, I guess?
I would say the paranormal, but let me expand that out. I think I do a lot of the ghost stuff, but I'm interested in so much more than that. I'm interested in the cryptids and the folklore around that. I'm interested in the myths and monsters and the legends that people experience, but also things like UFOs and aliens and like interdimensional things, like any aspect of the weird and unexplained I'm interested in. And as I explained before, I'm kind of a skeptic myself for any given thing. I think there is a rational, logical, scientific explanation for it. But at the same time, there is obviously so much about reality that we don't know. I think one of the things I've mentioned in some of the presentations that I give is there are so many stars just in the Milky Way galaxy, billions and billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And that's just one galaxy among 200 million to like trillions of galaxies. And all of those planets, all of those galaxies, which could hold who knows what, are just 5% of the matter in the universe. And the rest of the matter in the universe, the rest of the 95% is dark energy and dark matter. And what is that? We have no freaking idea. Mm-hmm. So like there's, even looking at all of the trillions of planets that are out there that could hold whatever, that's a tiny sliver of what actually exists. And we have no idea about the rest of it. And that's just in our universe. Who knows how many universes there are? Who knows how many dimensions there are? Mm-hmm. There is so much that we just do not understand about anything. So who is to say that some of this stuff doesn't exist or what it could be? There's a physicist, theoretical physicist, kind of scientist, Donald Hoffman, and he has a theory that it's kind of gaining some traction, and it is the most out there theory I've ever heard. And that is essentially that reality is an illusion. Every single thing around us is a construct of our mind. Space-time, everything is fundamentally a creation of the mind that exists because it helps us navigate the world in a way that makes sense to our brain. So everything from the tables around us communicating now, it is not real. And he has like some scientific data to kind of back this up to the extent that that can exist. And then you look at things like string theory and the weirdness of quantum entanglement and quantum physics. There is so much out there that the more we learn about physics and science, the crazier it gets. And I think since there's so much we don't understand, that's what really drives me to explore more and learn.
That's what I always wonder. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, what do you think that actual like spirits or ghosts actually is? Is it just energy? Is it actually someone who's deceased? Like, what is your theory on that?
I can tell you what I want to believe. I want to believe that ghosts are literally the continuation of our consciousness, that they are humans that have continued to linger there. But Richard Feynman has the quote that says, the most important thing is to not fool yourself, and you're the easiest one to fool. So we need to be careful of our own biases and what we want to be true. Really looking at it, I think probably the least likely thing that ghosts are is remnants of human conscious energy that are still lingering around. I think it's probably much more likely that they are combinations between dimensions coming together, thin areas in that veil there, that they are entities that we don't have typically the ability to experience because they are outside of our visual range or our audio range. They are constantly around us, that they are in another dimension and they are casting shadows or in some other way manipulating our reality. I think that's more likely what they could be and what they are. And one of my theories, I have absolutely nothing to back this up, but one of my theories that I've had for a long time is that the reason we experience them in old jails and abandoned properties and at nighttime in spooky places is because that's when our brain is most attuned to what could be threats and what could be out there. And that's when we are kind of on the wavelength to experience those types of things. But if that's true, then the spookiness and the ghosts and whatever else are around us at all times. But it's when our brains are primed to be in that spooky location that we kind of actually sense it and experience it. Again, I have nothing to back that up other than my own thoughts, but it's something I'd like to experience further.
Yeah. And that's one of my things too, is I feel like it could just be energy that's there, and it's always there, and it's witnessing our history, and it's just personifying itself as individuals from the past. And it's not really those individuals, it's just the energy creating identity so that it can interact with us for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely could be the case. It could be future timelines dissecting with ours. It could be diverging universes because some quantum state ended and now those universes are still touching a little bit. There's so much we don't understand that I think we all need to explore further. And that's why I'm all for it. Like, do I really think that I'm going to discover a ghost or a cryptid or an alien? Probably not. Are there other things that we could be spending our time on, like curing cancer and solving world hunger and ending global warming and all of this stuff? Probably. And I think humans should definitely spend the majority of their time focusing on those things. But because I'm already interested in abandoned places in history, sure, throw me into some of these places and I'll see what I can find. I think it's a very viable use of my time. And it is one that is the least likely to bear fruit. But if it does ever bear fruit, it's going to be the most impactful. I think it is absolutely worth people spending a small fraction of their time exploring mysteries and the unknown, because solving any of this could change everything about our existence and what it means to be human on Earth.
Exactly. And let's be fair, Ryan, you're a super intelligent guy, but Sean and I, we're not curing cancer. We're not doing any of that. So we might as well.
There's a couple of Yenzers over here.
Yeah. But no, I agree.
So basically everything's a demon. So.
Yeah. We had a guy on there saying it, but hey, I'm not going to judge him. It's his perspective and belief. So, everybody, I respect everyone's belief as long as they don't, shit on my beliefs. But I would love to get it to the point where we can accurately define what we're interacting with And if for whatever reason it is, you know, deceased individuals and it's whatever energy that's left over after their soul leaves their body or whatever happens, use that to solve murders, use that to solve crimes, use it in a very good way that is beneficial to the world. Because I mean, right now we're just kind of talking to it. I mean, we're expanding on history, potentially getting deceived on history. But if we could somehow figure out what it is and then use it in a way to do something productive, I think would be the greatest thing ever. And my cat just took a crap every podcast.
No, I think that's true. I think one of the things that I'd love to see from the paranormal is something verifiable, like you get an EVP or an interaction or something that directs you to something that you could actually prove. If they're like, go dig under the third tree in the backyard and you end up finding the thing that they say was there, that would be a lot of proof that you actually are communicating with some kind of intelligence. I think what I'm nervous about happening at a lot of these places is people, I think somewhat irresponsibly, will go to a place where there's been a murder or a kidnapping or some kind of mystery and convince themselves that they are communicating with the murderer or the deceased or someone who witnessed it, and are learning about the crime and are sharing that information publicly. And like, these are real people that actually live these lives and have descendants out there that could be impacted by the information that you are sharing. So I think we really need to be responsible as paranormal investigators, that we are not speaking on something we really don't know and not convince ourselves that we know something we don't. I think we all need to do a better job of like policing each other when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. And even using different words like, oh, I solved this murder. No, it's, you know, it's my hypothesis that this may have occurred based on the evidence I had. Just
you say you're not smart and you're out here coming up with a hypothesis for murder. All right, Mikey.
Well, I always feel bad because like in our prior documentaries, I always said like, oh, this is my theory. And it's like, no, it's never been proven. I need to say hypothesis. I always look back at our old stuff and I'm like, what an idiot. So what other projects are you currently working on outside of, you know, the urban exploring and the, you know, the paranormal?
Yeah, so I am interested in kind of restarting a podcast and getting back into content creation. A while ago, I had a podcast called Future Grind, which still kind of exists. It was not about the paranormal. It was about emerging science and technology and how it's going to impact human society going forward. So things like robotics, AI, augmentation, synthetic biology, space travel, things like that, things that are absolutely going to impact our future and change the world for everyone. I would like to blend a little bit more of that with the paranormal, with some of the stuff I was sharing already. So I'm looking to get back in the content creation. And as you mentioned, Mikey, like I am always going places and exploring. And I think I need to do a better job of not just taking pictures at these places, but actually creating content around them and sharing those experiences with others. So expect me to get more active on TikTok, on TikTok and YouTube and some of these other social platforms, perhaps starting my own podcast again, getting more into some of this content creation stuff.
You should actually do a podcast from abandoned places.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, we definitely probably not do it live because I wouldn't want like random people showing up at the abandoned places.
Interview some like homeless people or something.
Yeah.
Although maybe that would be safer if you're live and there's homeless people around. Maybe they'll leave you alone a little.
Yeah, yeah. It's like there might be a cop watching right now. No, I think that would be interesting because I know like you're like the best narrator when it comes to describing the history. I mean, you do a lot of research at every location we go to. So I think doing a podcast, knowing that history and just discussing the history, and maybe even doing like a little mini investigation and see what you may get that coincides with the history. You could kind of blend investigating and a podcast all in one.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. That's something that would be good to explore further. I think one of the issues we often get into when it comes to the paranormal and doing the live streams of paranormal investigations is the investigations are changed somewhat to some degree when you're doing them live. the type of equipment you use is different. I think you're much more interactive with the spirits and the entities than you would otherwise be. If you're alone in a location and you're not live streaming and you're just recording, it's quite often to sit in silence for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just see what people hear. That's something that doesn't really work when you're translating it to live stream and you're trying to let every few minutes more people are joining, people are dropping off. You're trying to reintroduce where you are and what you're doing to the new people that are joining, and that changes the investigations to some degree. And I think you're also a lot more likely to use things like necrophonics or the Ovilus or spirit boxes or things that are more audible when you're doing live streams, because that gives the audience an opportunity to participate as well and ask their own questions and jump in and get involved, which I think is extremely valuable. There's so many times where we're at a location and the commenters ask extremely relevant questions, or they know something about the history of the place that we don't, or they share their own experiences there that match what we're experiencing, or put us on a new line of questioning to explore. There's so much of that happens that I think there's so much value in doing that. But the investigations that are live streamed are definitely different than the investigations that aren't. So that's why I try to split things up. If I go to a location, I want to live stream for 3 hours or so, and then I want to spend the rest of the night not live streaming and doing a little bit of both. And the other reason for that is, sometimes there's a theory that the spirits don't want to be broadcast to the internet for millions of people to see eventually. They want to just talk to you, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that without the cameras on. Now that's kind of sketchy, because then who's going to believe you? If something happens like, oh, I had this great interaction after the cameras turned off. Like, sure you did. But still, I think we should give the opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah. We've had that several times where we're, interacting at the Bel Air house. I think you were there for that one in the attic, where we were interacting with potentially the entity that goes by Emily Davis, but the dark version, and it said cameras. So we did. I shut off my cameras, but I think Jen still had her phone on, so we kind of tricked her a little bit. But then we also had it happen at the Monroe house, and all I did was turn my IR lights on so we could still at least have the audio. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the magic happens when the cameras are off.
Well, one of the things I think though with the live streaming too, like interactive wise, it's good to like something like dowsing rods. I wouldn't use dowsing rods if there wasn't a camera around. Something visual, like I'll use for the camera, but some shit like I don't really believe in that stuff. It just makes it look good, and maybe it'll match up with something else that you're using. But like anything like a dowsing rods, like a pendulum, I don't know, anything that's just visual, I probably wouldn't use off camera.
Yeah. I would. It depends. But I don't know.
Even like when we did the table tippings type stuff too, like that was more for the visual, even though it didn't really translate the camera.
It was horrible. It was horrible. It's like these assholes are just holding a table.
Yeah, and I think one of the big important things about live streaming is you need to have it dark. I see so many people try to live stream and they are doing it from their iPhones, whatever they have available, and that's totally understandable. If that's what you have, that's what you have. But when it's like, I think it does take something away from the investigation when you're not tuning your senses into the environment that you're in the dark, and when you need to have lights on to do some of that. Like, I don't mean like the colored lights that you have just to be able to see, but like if people have like full overhead lights on, I think it takes something away from the investigation a little bit for me. I know that there are people that like doing it that way, but throw me in a dark room with no light whatsoever. That's how I like to be.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, with the lives, like, obviously we want to have as many team members in the area, in the room interacting, with our followers. I think it sometimes takes away from, like, I don't even remember the last time I did a solo at an investigation. And I think that's really where you get the best interactions, is when you are just by yourself in a dark room for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, when you're most vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's my favorite experience was at Trans Allegheny when I had them shut me in the what are those rooms called? The ones where they would chain them to the floor. isolation chambers.
You didn't like being bound in Hillview?
Well, I was with somebody, so
so you liked it even more, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I love it when Freighter ties me up, you know. But I think that also needs to be something that we do more often in investigations when we're not doing the live streams. It's like, all right, well, hey, Sean, go in that room for like 40 minutes and, you know.
Yeah, we've kind of gotten away from that because we used to do that.
Yeah, and I think we need to get back to that because I think just being isolated by yourself and maybe not even just have a digital voice recorder and a camcorder and see what happens.
Well, I'm happy to do that stuff on live too. I think one of the things that I love doing is picking a single person and throwing them in a room, and we can keep the live stream camera in there with them, you know, and broadcast 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so of just them in the room. I think there's totally a place for that. And one of the things about live streaming is it's often hard because, you know, investigating takes a lot out of you. It's very exhausting in many ways. You're doing this late at night. It's taking all your energy and attention. So you want to take a break every now and then. And then when you do, it's like, the live stream's running for 2 hours. Do we stop it? What do we do? My strategy is typically I throw to some pre-recorded content that I have from earlier, which is just like a static camera somewhere. But the solution to that could be we select a team member to just go to a solo for 40 minutes. So I would suggest we start doing that more often.
I would do that.
That can be you.
Another thing that we used to do all the time, we haven't done in a while, was the remote Estes. Like I was always the one doing them.
Yeah.
They'd bring the baby monitor in and do it with that. But we don't really do that anymore either.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing is the baby monitor we were using kind of crapped the bed. So,
I mean, send me a link for something. I'll buy a new one or something. But
okay. I'm the baby monitor expert, I guess. So yeah.
Well, we did something at what was it, at Pickle Jar? We live streamed me up a Pickle Jar, and then you guys asked questions, you know, straight from my phone. So we could even do something like that too. You know?
Yeah. I mean, we did that with StreamYard too at the Bel Air house when I was up in the Kelby area in the attic. So we still do it. It's just it's a little different method. I do miss the baby monitor method because obviously Sean had a really good experience with that, with it getting knocked over.
I had a couple things happen because that Tin Lizzie time too.
Yeah, you just mumble all the time. You need to just shout it out like I do, scream.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like after the fact. I was just like out of it and like my voice has changed and shit like that. It's weird.
Yeah. So as far as investigation techniques, because you know, a lot of the times you're on the camera. What are your favorite methods or pieces of equipment that you like to use when you're, you know, in investigator mode?
Well, I'm very interested in like energy, so I'm excited about REM pods. Usually, I like the interaction that you're able to get from that. Of course, the problem with those is they are so easy to set off, either intentionally with like a walkie-talkie or with a device, or just because of interference that's in the environment. So I think we need to do a better job of like eliminating the potential for those negatives and those like false positives we're getting there. But I love the idea of being able to communicate through energies. I think that's, if the paranormal exists to the extent that we think it does, I think that could be an avenue for communication, because that's something that they might be a medium of communication there. I know Lauren from Lauren Hans has done some great work with the crystal pods that she has. She has a new seer pod coming out. I'm very excited about those types of pieces of equipment because of the level of sensitivity they have and the types of information they gather. I think it could be very helpful for investigators going forward. I like the idea of like spirit boxes and stuff, but the issue is there's so much contamination and things that you don't actually know what you're picking up on. How much of that is just imagined things? So there's a lot more work to be done. But I really like a lot of the interaction you get from the energy devices. But of course, at the end of the day, my favorite piece of equipment is a camera. I think one of the reasons for that is I don't want anyone to have to take my word for what happened. I want to have documentation of it. And another thing that I really want to get into doing more in investigations is I have this Fitbit wearable device here. It's constantly taking my heart rate. I've had more advanced ones in the past that I sometimes wear that measure your galvanic skin response, which is basically your level of sweat, which is like a stress response, or there's ones that do like your blood oxygen levels, things like that. I want to be able to help coordinate what I'm experiencing with my body with data to back it up. So how many times are you at an investigation and someone says, I feel something on my back, or I'm sensing something, or I'm getting sick? I want to be able to pinpoint the moment in time where people are feeling that and then have the data to back it up. So I want to do a lot more of that.
That's kind of like, like I used to work for Scarehouse and that. And the first couple of years they had the basement there, the lady that used to run it her name's Margie Kerr, Dr. Margie Kerr. And she would actually monitor people that went through. They would wear heart monitors and measure everything else. And she has a book out actually too that talks about all like the different experiments she had with fear and going to these different places. Like she went to the suicide forest and did stuff. And like, it's a really interesting book. I'm sure you'd like it, but it kind of sounds similar to what you're saying, like measuring everything like that.
Yeah. Now, the only thing you'd have to do is you'd have to have like a baseline of, because I think a lot of the people that, they feel like they get touched or anything.
That's Lauren right there. Actually just said, hey, homies. What's up, Lauren?
But it seems like, a lot of it's like, oh, your hair is like raising on your arm. Like that's your natural reaction to being, scared a lot of the times. So I think you would have to baseline how your body reacts to certain things like fear and different things like that. So that if you feel like you're being touched, it's not just your body's natural reaction to, fear or, something to that extent where you need to kind of differentiate what your natural responses are compared to like if it is influenced by an external thing, if that makes sense.
You could just be like, I got the chills.
Yeah. Just, I mean, that's what a lot of people say. I got the chills. It's like, are you just kind of in a uncomfortable position because of fear? And that's just your body's natural reaction to it. So I don't know if you would need like another thing to back it up or.
No, I'm all about data. So I wear this device 24/7. So I have my baseline health data, my heart rate, blood oxygen, all of that consistently. So ideally I would know when I'm, in a paranormal location where nothing happens or a reportedly haunted paranormal location where something is happening and be able to compare that. I think the ultimate goal would be to be able to transparently have that data from everyone on the team and know what everyone is experiencing. Because if I'm wearing the device and someone next to me is also wearing the device and we both have the same spike in sensing something at the same time, perhaps that gives a little bit more credibility to it. But I really think, this biometric data, this tracking, this health data is going to become a lot more important in the paranormal going forward. And I think it has to, because what is more real about an experience than what your body does, and tracking that is very important.
No, I like it. Yeah, it's a different perspective for sure. Because usually I just take a K2 if someone's getting touched and try to see if I can get a reading on where they're apparently getting touched. So it's definitely a better method, I would say.
So getting back quickly to the I mentioned that I worked with a group that did like human augmentation and biohacking stuff. One popular augmentation that a lot of people have is magnet implants in the tip of the finger. And this does like neat party tricks where you can do things like pick up a paper clip or a bottle cap or something. There's actually like some functional uses for it. I have a friend who is a magician and she performs a lot of tricks by like activating other implants in her body or activating tricks with this magnet that's in her finger. So there's a lot of uses for it. But one of the things that magnets do is they oscillate in the presence of certain magnetic fields or electromagnetic radiation. So you can actually have this magnet in your finger and sense things like a subway car moving beneath the streets below you, or a live wire. There are electricians that have these magnets so that they know if they are reaching for a wire and they're feeling their finger vibrate, that wire is not dead. There's live energy going through there. So people have been saved by doing this. But my idea is to use some of that in the paranormal, where you can actually feel in your fingertip if something is happening. That is a device that helps working with you to sense things.
Wow. Yeah. That is crazy.
It's gonna take you cutting your
Yeah.
finger open and putting something inside, but
Yeah.
what could go wrong?
Wouldn't be
Yeah,
wouldn't be the
exactly.
craziest thing Mikey's inserted inside, I'm sure.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Mike, we always jag about Mikey wanting to put a spirit box in himself.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it'd just be handy. I mean, it's better than a fanny pack, just having it right there in the forearm. Get that sweet going. So, outside of the body augmentation, what other advances in technology do you feel we could, you know, potentially look at to kind of expand on better communication?
This is an idea that I've had for a while, and I'm going to put it out there because I know it's probably nothing I'm ever going to have the time and bandwidth to actually do myself. But we have things like Ovilus devices where we have like a bank of words that are assigned to some frequency or energy, and then the device picks up on energy in the environment and shares a word. I would like to do something like that with a 3D printer where there are either predetermined designs or instructions, like a certain frequency is moving the needle left or right or exuding plastic or not, and just leave a 3D printer at some haunted location for a weekend or overnight and see what is printed based on the energies of the environment. And in theory, you could have a spirit printing you an object, a shape or an image or something that you could actually see later. And you could do one of these in many different haunted locations. At the end of the day, you kind of have like an art piece of this is what Hillview printed, or this is what Trans-Allegheny printed, or Ohio State Reformatory. I think that's a really interesting thing to do going forward. I'd like to do more of that. There's a lot of potential with just AI and machine learning in terms of analyzing images and video and data, where we have so many security cameras, and you know, every time we go to a location, we have 5 cameras running, we have 8 audio recorders, we have hours and hours of data to sift through that no human could really do it. So I think using AI and machine learning to analyze some of this data is going to be very important going forward, just because it's not scalable. A single human running 5 cameras and then trying to sit down and watch all of it, it's not going to happen. So I think we need to use technology a lot more to help with these types of things.
Yeah.
So Mikey, you can get one of your documentaries done in like months instead of years.
I see how it is. Anyways, I have 2 comments on that. So first one, we went to the Bell Mansion convention. That was probably 2 years ago, Sean? Maybe a year and a half ago.
It was last year. It was actually
last year.
Coming up, yeah, it was like last together. March or something.
There was a guy that I talked to, and like, you would have a better conversation because, I mean, I'm like here, this dude's like way here, and like you're probably like up to par with him as far as you know, on scientific you know, elements, I guess. But that's how he would investigate. He had this device that he made where I forget everything that it read, but it was like, you know, obviously the normal ones, EMF, you know, but it had other aspects than I can't remember all of them, but it was like probably 15 different things that it was monitoring. And all he would do was leave this device at a supposedly haunted location, and he would leave for, you know, a couple hours. He always said, I'd go to the bar for a couple hours, come back, make sure everything's good, go back to the bar, leave it there. And he would just leave it there for, you know, an entire investigation. And that was the way he investigated. And then he would go through and analyze all that data and see pretty much like what different parameters created a haunting, or supposedly created a haunting. And it was just amazing. And it was so analytical. I mean, he also had a device where he's like, if I can catch an EVP using this, it's amazing. And I don't remember exactly what it would pick up, but it almost looked like a what are those things that you put on the beach and you try to scan for metal objects? Metal detector, duh. But
I think that detects metal. Yes, metal.
Yeah, you know those things. But it was so sensitive that it could actually, like, if you put it up to your head, because you have, you know, headphones on, you could hear your brain vibrating. And if you put it up to a light, you could hear the frequency of the light. And I was like, dude, wait, let's go to the basement and see if we can pick up an EVP. That would be amazing. But yeah, it was very analytical, and just what you just described there just kind of put me back into that situation, like talking to this guy, and it was just insane.
Yeah, it reminded me of that too.
Yeah.
There's so many interesting ways to get information from these locations that I think we need to experiment with more. I think one of the biggest things is just using normal devices that people have around. Like, you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on something that detects something that you don't even really understand how it works. Like that, that I think is a little bit silly. I mean, how many people in the paranormal really can't articulate to you how a REM pod works? And if you can't do that, there's something wrong, because you don't understand what you're communicating with, or what you're reading, or how it works, or what interacts with it. I think in general, we need to be better at understanding what the equipment does and how it works. And if you don't understand that, I mean, use a candle, right? Like, try to communicate with a candle and do flickers and stuff like that. Because at least at that point, you understand fire, you know what's doing it, you can communicate through that method. I think we need a lot more of that.
No, I agree. It's just, oh, look, it's lighting this up. It's pretty lights. So yeah, I get that 100%. The other thing I was going to ask, because you were talking about having AI, potentially look through evidence in a more efficient way than the human eye. How do you think AI will eventually affect the field where people are going to start using it to fake things?
You're already seeing so much of that. Anything you could imagine in terms of images at this point can be realistically created almost instantly for free with AI. We are a few short months away from that becoming video. And I would say within the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing full feature-length films being created and released using AI. And it's not going to be too long after that until those movies that are being created are going to be customized to you based on what you like and interact with on social media and what you do. And you're going to see a customized ending that someone else doesn't see based on what you interact with. And of course, that's going to impact fakeries and frauds and forgery in the paranormal. You're going to see the most realistic paranormal visions and visuals that you can possibly see. And we're going to need to be a lot better at separating what's real from what's not real. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, this isn't just an issue for the paranormal. This is an issue for society in general. You're going to see videos of religious leaders and government leaders and presidents saying things that they've never said. The way that we combat that is the same way that we do it with the spoken word, right? Like, yes, you can make convincing videos that say whatever you want now, but for millennia, since the beginning of language, humans could have lied about what someone else said. And the way that you determine whether someone is lying or not is, what is your relationship with that person? Have they proven themselves to be trustworthy? And you base whether or not you believe them on that reputation. The same thing is going to happen in the paranormal and everything else. You believe a claim based on who is making it. And the most important thing here is we can also leverage technology. So we can leverage blockchain technology to make sure that something has not been altered or changed from its creation. So if you have a chain of custody of, this is what the video or image looked like when it was created on this day at this time, here's that image today, here's the source, and here's everywhere it went to get to you, you'll be able to believe that image or video is real and hasn't been edited. We're going to need to use blockchain for a lot of this stuff.
Now, with you saying that, though, don't you think it'd go the opposite way, too, and people could just use that as a scapegoat?
Explain that a little more. What do you mean?
Like, oh, that wasn't me that did that. That was AI or whatever, you know?
I think that's absolutely going to happen. But I think one other thing that we're going to see happening a lot more is, okay, maybe this is more aspirational. Maybe this is what I hope to see happen. But there was a big thing recently with, I don't know, it's commonly called, I guess, like cancel culture in society, where if someone gets famous for whatever reason, suddenly they get on like The Voice, or they are in a viral video or something, or they get a job, they get appointed to something, people will often dig up their a decade old tweet or something they said, or a video of them in high school, and try to use that to ruin their reputation or do something like that. And I think, who doesn't have something in their past that is like something they're not proud of or wouldn't want out there? So I think we need to do a better job of like recognizing that like everyone has these things, and if that's the case, then everyone gets a pass on those things, right? Like I think we need to do a better job of like being okay with some of that stuff that happens.
Yeah, like canceling John Wayne, like after he's been dead for so long. But isn't it kind of crazy that you know, we've always lived in a world of automation where they're trying to, you know, automate everything. I always thought that, you know, these advances in technology would be more automation towards like manual labor and different things. But now it's like automation and creativity. And it's like, at what point does it just, we're not going to have jobs. We're not going to have anything. We're just going to sit at home and just rely on technology for
like in Wall-E or whatever.
existing.
Yeah, no, I think for the last few years, for the last 20 years or so, people knew that AI and automation was coming to replace jobs. People just often thought it would be manufacturing and manual labor and in skilled trades. They didn't think it would be the writers and the journalists and the filmmakers and the content creators. And it turns out that those are the first people that are being reliably replaced by AI. So I think not a lot of people saw that coming. It's now like the manual labor and the skilled trades in manufacturing that is the places where like you need some humans in the loop at places, which is interesting, but that is going to change. What we're seeing now is AI as we know it, with things like ChatGPT and DALL-E or all these other softwares that are coming out. They are existing in a machine, right? We are interacting with them with keyboards and mouses and other things. But that is soon going to be embodied in robotics. Robotics are going to be running AI on them. And when that happens, we're going to have robots interacting with the world, physically manipulating the world through AI. And that is when it's going to come for the other jobs. The other jobs where you currently need humans for are going to be replaced by robots and AI. Now, a lot of people are terrified of that. They think that's a good reason to stop the robots, outlaw automation, pause AI, don't develop it anymore. I disagree. I am very much looking forward to the day where I am automated out of work because I have so many other things I want to spend my time doing. I don't think, speaking for myself, I am never going to be the lazy person sitting on the couch while a robot does all the work. I'm going to spend time exploring and going out and learning more and learning new skills and going places where I've never gone before. And I think most people are going to be like that in the same way. What we just need to do is figure out how to make sure that people can live and survive and have, in that society of abundance that AI and robotics are going to create, we need to make sure that that abundance is shared among the people that need to survive. And now that's easier said than done. There's going to be some hard years getting to that, but I'm confident that it will happen.
But
we're going to also have to figure out a way to make Arnold Schwarzenegger younger too. So.
Yeah. But do you think with AI being in this creative sphere, I can't talk tonight. Do you feel that that's going to eliminate the necessity for humans being creative or even having motivation to be creative at some point? And then on the flip side, if we have these robots and this AI almost free thinking like a human, at what point could, a Terminator situation happen? Not to sound dumb, because I'm sure you get asked that all the time, but it seems like having them have free will kind of is a scary thing.
So there's going to be probably the majority of the audience is going to disagree with me here. We talk about machines having free will. I don't think humans have free will, first of all. So that's step one there. But I am in favor of accelerating science and technology for the benefit of all. I definitely think it's not out of the question that a Terminator type scenario in which AI ends humanity. I don't know if that happens in Terminator. I've never seen Terminator. I don't know that story. But anyway.
Dude, there's two of them. Oh, actually, there's like a million of them.
Yeah, there's like 5 of them, I think.
Only two that matter. And
I don't think it's out of the question that AI ends humanity.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that if we don't create AI, humanity is going to end humanity. right? Like we are going to destroy ourselves. And I think AI and technology is an escape valve to hopefully make life a multiplanetary species, to get out there in the solar system and the galaxy and beyond, so that if there is some catastrophic event somewhere, life carries on. You know, the Drake equation says that there should be intelligent life everywhere in the universe. Why don't we see it? That's a paradox. Well, we don't know why that's the case. Until we know that there's life other elsewhere, I think humanity has a responsibility to nurture it and take care of it and try to spread it. For all we know, we could be the only life in the entire existence could be here on Earth. So we need to do what we can to spread that. And I think technology is going to help us do that. If we stay here and don't develop, we're going to die off. And that's going to happen.
No, it's a perspective I never really thought of, because but do you think that there's a balance that needs, like a line that needs to be drawn, and not necessarily in advancements in the technology, because you always want to continue the advancement, but a line that needs to be drawn where we need to make sure that humans are still, they're not obsolete, like they're still necessary and they can coexist and still, embrace that creativity and still have, the necessity of even doing anything, while we also have the reliance on AI to, further expand, things that we're not capable of.
Maybe, but I don't know how you stifle the development of this technology without seriously infringing on individual rights or passing power off to your enemies, because your enemies are not going to stop developing stuff. And if you don't develop it in turn, they're going to overwhelm you. Or you're not going to stop every rogue person in their basement from working on these projects themselves. So I think we can't do the throw our hands up and pause everything approach. I think we need to safely and responsibly accelerate technology as best we can. And there's going to be issues, but I think the remedy for that is new and better technology to solve those problems.
Well, do you think another remedy would be to use AI, and obviously I don't know this, how you would be able to, but use AI to try to almost create unity amongst the human race? Not that it's us against AI, but, a collective agreement of, we can take it this far, and then maybe all the world leaders get together and say, okay, this needs, we need to pivot this way, still expand, on the technology, but make sure it doesn't go into a direction that could be, somewhat catastrophic.
Yeah. One thing I think we need to call attention to is that, I mean, I am doing it also in this conversation, is I'm using the term AI as if it's some singular monolith. More realistically, it's going to be AIs, plural. There's going to be many of them. They're going to be interacting with each other. They're going to all have their own programming and goals in mind. They're going to be part of this equation with us. And then there are things like Neuralink, which Elon Musk is working on, kind of advanced brain-computer interfaces. And if that is successful, that will essentially integrate humanity into the world of AI so that we won't necessarily be competing with it, but will be a part of it, which is scary to think about in many ways, but also where the future is heading. And I'm very open to that future. So I think there is going to be a lot of potential that's going to change a lot of how we live today, but we need to be aware of that.
Well, so in layman terms, is that basically like we're going to be cyborgs or something, is what you're saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, look a few centuries ago. If you were speaking to someone from the 1500s and you told them that there are humans today that have artificial organs, that if they lose a limb that can be replaced by a robotic limb, that they can put little sheets of plastic in their eye, like I have now, to help them see better, that they can communicate with people around the world in real time, like we are doing right now, and that they can leave the planet, they would already say that we are cyborgs. So I think that definition is just going to change. We are soon going to have people that are electively choosing to replace biological body parts because technological ones are better. They're going to be using CRISPR and other gene editing tools to change their DNA, to give them new traits, to change their physical appearance and their abilities and what they can do. And I don't think those people are necessarily going to consider themselves any less human than we do today. And they will be as more advanced than us as we are compared to the 1500s. So I think it's going to be a spectrum. You're going to see a lot more diversity. There are people today, the Amish here in Pennsylvania, that choose to live like it's that centuries ago. You're going to have that happen. People are going to choose to not use this technology, to not augment themselves. And I think that's entirely okay. But we're also going to have people that do choose to do it. And I think that is a completely valid path. And it seems weird to us. I don't think it'll seem weird when you're doing it any more than it seems weird to have a prosthetic arm today.
So what you're saying basically, Ryan, is you're a robot right now and you're just trying to hide it.
I have been accused of that. Yes, I am not, at least to my knowledge, but I haven't.
Yeah, they may have secretly implanted something, but no. So last time I looked at Neuralink updates, I believe they were testing them on animals and they weren't doing well. Is that correct? I think it was on chimpanzees or something, and have they had any breakthroughs since that? Because I think that was probably like maybe like 6 months ago. I heard that, or a year ago.
Yeah, they've been in pigs, they've been in monkeys. They're advancing up the ladder now. They're talking about human trials. That's definitely forthcoming. In the near term, those trials are going to be with people with things like spinal cord injuries to try to give them the ability to control robotic arms or other things or interact with their environment in a way that they cannot with their biological bodies. In the future, that will not be rehabilitative, but will become augmentative. So you'll be given more capabilities than a biological human would have by using Neuralink. We're not there yet. There are risks. There are a lot of interesting things around elective surgeries or augmentative surgeries, because the Hippocratic Oath is first do no harm. And when you're doing something that is elective and augmentative, there's a risk of harm without what the medical establishment would see as an obvious upside. They have a baseline level of what they consider a healthy human that is completely arbitrary, but is their baseline level. And they want to bring people that are below that up to that level. They have zero interest in bringing anyone who is at that level above that level. So we need to change that. Whether we create a whole new industry of elective augmentative procedures separate from the medical industry, or whether the medical industry evolves and changes, we're going to need to do something different. Neuralink's going to be a part of that. Sure, they've had some failures. Some things have gone wrong. I think that's progress. That's how we know how to improve. I think we're going to get to a point where it becomes commonplace. I mean, look at some of Elon Musk's other companies, right? Like SpaceX blew up how many rockets? They failed so many times with vertical landings, and now it's commonplace. Now they do a vertical landing successfully all the time. They're reusing boosters more than anyone. This has never happened before, so I think it's quite likely that we're going to get to a point where, you know, Neuralink and other technologies are going to be proven safe and effective, and then it's just up to people whether they want to use them or not.
Well, it's kind of crazy that they have that line regards to, you know, technological augmentation, but yet people can still get plastic surgery that don't require plastic surgery. So I don't see what the difference is and where that line is, because it seems like, you know, both are just upgrades. If you want to consider plastic surgery an upgrade, sometimes it kind of makes you look a little goofy, but I just don't see how you differentiate between the two. I mean, obviously you don't want some people to be super soldiers or something to that extent, but I don't know. It's definitely a weird, blurry line of what's ethical, what's not ethical, for sure.
I totally agree. I've had cosmetic surgeons and plastic surgeons reach out to me before to discuss how we can commercialize and bring to market some of the elective augmentative implants that some of my friends have been developing. And we really put the brakes on that because unfortunately, there's no safe path to market that we saw as a way that we would not be liable for when something inevitably goes wrong, right? Someone is going to be seriously injured or killed by an elective augmentative implant at some point. And we really need to get to the point where when that inevitably happens, it doesn't shut down that industry entirely.
Yeah.
So what we did with Grindhouse Wetware is we stopped developing devices for human use, and they spun out a new company developing the same devices for cattle. So these devices we were creating for humans are now being used in animals. So we hope to work our way back up to humans eventually, but we're not there yet, just because of laws. The tech is there, but the legal system isn't there yet.
Interesting. Now, when you came on, did you think you were going to talk this much about technology, or
I had no idea what we were going to talk about. This is not the course that I saw the conversation going. We can get back to the paranormal whenever. This is the
park jokes or something like that.
Yeah, this is amazing. I had a question, but then you just mentioned that and it kind of went away.
I agree with Ryan for president.
Yeah, for sure. We'll all have robotic arms, and but we'll all be able to kick some ass, But I'm trying to think of what my question was, because it was definitely related to what we were just discussing. Well, maybe it'll come back. So with the animal trials, have they shared any information regarding any data that they were able to get from, doing these on pigs and whatnot, in a way that they were able to tell what the animals were thinking? Because just like a comedian, I'm trying to go back to, if I put one in my pet, am I going to tell if my pet wants to seduce me or if she sees me as a father figure? But no, you get what I mean. What benefit did they get as far as data? Or like, at what point are we going to have pigs talking to us, or something to that extent, or be able to tell what they're thinking?
Yeah, I'm not completely up to date on the most recent Neuralink science. I do know that we are at the point, whether it's with brain-computer interfaces or other technology, that we can read brain waves, and then it becomes a challenge of interpreting what those brain waves mean. We are already able to get rough images of what someone is looking at. Like if you have someone in a lab and you show them an apple, and there's brain sensors connected to them, we can generate a rough image of an apple based on just reading their brain waves. So mind reading in that sense is absolutely physically possible. That tech is going to get better. When you're thinking about doing it with pets, I think the question is, we might find out the pets are really thinking about like food and sleep a lot. Like they might not have a lot going on up there.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they get to that point, there's
plotting your death, Mikey.
Yeah, there's no more blackjack, no more poker, because you can tell if someone's bluffing at that point.
Yeah, no, I think we could get to the point of that. Now, I guess one of the things that we're going to need to see is how society reacts to that. What privacy laws do we put in place? Is it like you need to ask for consent before reading someone's mind? I don't know. And this stuff is all going to be coming.
Yeah. There's a lot of
like that What Women Want movie or whatever.
Yeah. You're just Mel Gibson, just hearing all the dirty stuff. I think mine, it would just be just women commenting about, man, that guy's eyebrows are fucking ridiculous. But yeah, it's so crazy because I, not being in the industry, I never thought of just the ethical barriers that you hit almost in every advancement in technology. But I guess it was always like that, even when we started automation and started taking, replacing people's jobs, just skilled, laborers and whatnot, because there's always, pushback from that when it's affecting people's lives on a mass, amount, I guess.
Yeah, we had Luddites existing in England in the industrial era that were destroying the technology that was replacing their work, which was like looms in fabric, and like their livelihoods in fabric was being replaced by technology. So they went in and they destroyed the machinery. And I think there's always going to be neo-Luddites and whatever the present is going forward, in which people are going to be rejecting technology and fighting against it. And perhaps some of that is valid and worthwhile, but I think that they're not going to stop technology pushing forward. And I think ultimately the quality of life we have today is much better than the person who was making the most money that they could working in a fabric mill in the 1800s.
Yeah.
You know, we are just decades ago. I would much rather be, you know, a lower middle class person today than a king in the 1700s. We have a much better quality of life, and that's just going to increase.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's wow. It kind of blew my mind even having this discussion, just not being a part of that industry. It's just, you just don't think of all the different barriers. But at the same time, like you just discussed, it's always been like that. Every advancement, there's always pushback. I mean, I'm sure when, you know, computers came out, people were like, wow, there's different things. Obviously, there's always benefits to technological advancement, but there's also different ethical barriers that can happen. Like now we're connected with everybody. That also means, you know, our kids are connected with everybody, you know, and it just, I don't know. It's crazy. I'm at a loss for words. I usually don't get that with guests. So
yeah, you asked me if I thought this is what we'd be talking about now. I guess that question can go back on you guys. Do you have any idea this is what we'd be talking about?
No, we just kind of ran with it. I like it. Usually it's about like some paranormal stuff. My cat takes a shit and we call it a night. So this is great.
I wish I knew who a lot of these comments were. I see a lot of like comments coming on the side, but it's just Facebook user, and I want to like interact and engage, but like I don't know who these people are.
Yeah. Translate for us, Sean.
That right there that's Matt right there.
Okay.
That's Matt talking right there.
Hello.
Sean is our human technology here. He's our translator.
There was Jen.
Nice.
This is Jen.
Nice.
That makes sense. I can see that. Yeah.
Lauren was in there, but Lauren switched her name to Lauren at one point too.
Yeah,
okay.
I see.
Because it depends if you're on the group or on the page. I forget which one's which, but one of them will show your actual name.
Okay. I always wondered. Like I always thought.
But mostly,
that,
I think Matt, Jen, Lauren, Mike Mowry was on here earlier.
You had to do like an agreement. Because I think there's something you can click on when you go to view a StreamYard, and you can click to.
Yeah, something will pop up and tell you.
I don't know, Ryan. You're the technology guy.
If you're
Help
in
us.
The private group, I think it automatically uses your real name.
Yeah,
So your cat said right here you had to give permission.
Yeah. So people start giving it permission. We need your data. We need your information.
As was said earlier, consent is, and then there were two squares, which I don't know what those emojis.
Well, going back on the technology,
do that consent thing with StreamYard.
Yeah, exactly. Make it happen. You were gonna say something.
I think that was Jen too. This one right here, consent is, that one. That's Jen.
Jen given the
with the little Italian thing, I guess. I don't know what the hell it is.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Consent is the
Stugotz. That's the Stugotz right there.
Yeah.
Stugotz.
Oh man.
Gotta put the big wad in your cheek. You're like the Godfather ever.
Yeah.
But going off the technology and everything, do you think like life expectancy is gonna go up too then? Or
I hope so. I mean, that's one of my main goals here. I think do life extension first, because literally everything else can wait. You know, once you extend the lifespan, you have so much time for everything else. I do think that, you know, talking about why explore the paranormal and AI and stuff like that, I think understanding more about this stuff will help us learn how to extend human life, perhaps. That's definitely my goal in being a part of a lot of this. There's something called longevity escape velocity, which is you don't need to develop the pill or the treatment that's going to reverse aging or extend your life tomorrow. What you need to do is every year increase your lifespan by more than a year, in which case, once you do that, you're on a trajectory where you're eventually not going to die. And some people might think that's not possible given biology and science. I have spent years working for a company called lifespan.io that is crowdfunding research into this exact issue. I know a lot of the scientists that are actively working on the forefront of human longevity and life extension science. It is absolutely possible. We are now at the point with Yamanaka factors where we can reset human genes to like a pluripotent state where they can renew and refresh. Now there's a problem with that. That often results in cancer. That's not good. But we can solve this problem going forward. We can reverse aging in the human body. This is being tested now, and I think it's eventually going to come out. And I hope it does in my lifetime because I don't want to die.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at just the technological advancements, we've had so far, I mean, our life expectancy has gone up significantly without these advanced technological developments. So I think the question should be more going back to the ethics is not, will it increase life expectancy? Because it obviously will. There's, a way that it will, but will it decrease life necessity? Because at what point would we be able to download someone's essence and allow them to live on in VR, in a VR world, or allow them to have their presence exist in our world, but in a VR format, and it's still their being?
We can do that in some ways today in a very limited sense. That friend that I was telling you about that is a magician that has implants that uses them in her act. Her husband was a famous magician / comedian, the Amazing Jonathan. Some of you may have heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He passed away last year or so, the last couple of years, and she had an AI version of him created. So she can still talk to and interact with her husband who is deceased. And, we know that that's not him. His consciousness isn't in there, but it can still give people some sense of comfort to know that they can interact and perhaps hear the voice of or speak with someone who talks like their missing loved one. And that's going to get better and better and better to the point where, we're creating so much information about ourselves on social media, in our photos. We are going to have realistic recreations of people, very much Black Mirror style.
I was just going to say this like the Black Mirror episode. Yeah.
Yes. Amazing Jonathan was tremendous. I see that comment there. Absolutely.
That was,
I've had the honor of staying at their house a few times in Vegas when he was still alive. He is a great person. Really great stuff. But yeah, we are going to be able to recreate a lot of this. My big thing is I need continuity of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be uploaded to a computer because that's probably not me.
Yeah.
That's probably a copy of me. So I want to make sure that I am continuing to exist in whatever form that is. Now, one thing that's big here is the ship of Theseus problem. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the ship of Theseus, but it's this philosophical paradox, which is you have a boat, you have the ship, and you replace it piece by piece. So over a period of a few years, not one single piece of that ship is remaining. Is that the same ship? Now let's add a caveat to that. Let's take all the pieces you took off and reassemble them. So you now have two ships. Which one is the ship of Theseus? Which one is the original ship? I think this is a question that no one can really answer or solve, but let's imagine that with your brain now. Let's replace your brain piece by piece until at one point you have two brains. One, a continuity of the original that is completely replaced, and one that is the original put back together. Which one of those is you? This is a question we might be facing at some point. Whatever we do to extend human lifespan, I want that continuity of consciousness so that I know that it's me. Another way that you could explore this a little bit more is in Star Trek, when they beam people up and down, there's a big thought that that is not a continuity of consciousness. They are killing that person every time they beam them and are reassembling a new consciousness at the other end. I don't want that to happen to me. I want to exist in places and take advantage of this, but I don't want to die in the process.
Well, that's like with you talking about the AI stuff about it being comforting. When does it go from comforting to just creepy? Because that sounds kind of creepy to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know this is going to sound creepy, but I am 100% in favor of like outsourcing my life decisions to AI. If it told me what to eat and what to do and made decisions for me, please go ahead and do that. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, and we kind of skipped over, which is fine. I don't really think we need to dive into it, but like, I don't personally believe humans have free will. So if we outsource my decisions to AI, I don't necessarily see any difference between what I think is what I convinced is the illusion of myself making those decisions.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. And I liked how you say the point that we don't have free will, because we obviously do have limitations, whether legal or, just our own personal ethics can limit us as well. So that,
yeah, just to explain a little bit more about what I mean there, like, I don't know, like a red panda. Like, you're thinking about a red panda now because I said those words. What control did you have over that situation? You could have seen and heard anything, but now you're thinking about what I told you. You didn't have any control in that. Or like, what if I told you to like think of a movie? Just name any movie. Where did whatever movie you're thinking of now come from in your brain? It wasn't anything that you consciously materialized. I don't think you were able to choose what appeared in your brain. There are physical processes happening in your brain. And if we were to know the exact location of every subatomic particle in your brain and its trajectory and its momentum and its location, we could formulate a scientific formula to be able to predict everything from that point going forward in your life, because it is based on physics. Now that seems to be the case. Maybe there's some spirit or consciousness out there that is giving us this divine ability that we don't yet understand. I'm not ruling that out. I just don't yet see a place for it to exist.
Now, with that example though, with the red panda and how you were able to manipulate our thoughts to go to a red panda, we still have, I don't know if I would say it free will, but it may be just perspective on what image came into our mind. Because when you said red panda, I didn't think of just a red panda out in the nature. I thought of that dumb Disney movie where the girl has her period. So I think there's still not necessarily a free will, because obviously you were able to manipulate what we were thinking, but we still had our own perspective on what image came to our mind when you gave us, the topic of I guess a manipulative way of doing that. And I don't know, like where's that line where it's like, okay, you were able to give us a thought or something to think about to take away from what we were thinking about prior, because that was a manipulation. But at the same time, we still had our own perspective on what image came into our mind.
Well, what else if, like, he said a red panda, so obviously I could think of a red panda, but what happens if you would have said something, just being honest with you, half the shit you're talking about, I have no clue what the hell you're talking about. So say you brought something up and said something, I had no clue what you're talking about. You're not going to be able to manipulate me because I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, there is an interesting study that was done on split brain patients, and I think this has been duplicated and verified, in which patients who have the two hemispheres of their brain, left and right, separated so they cannot communicate, there are certain parts of your brain that control certain actions. And for example, like one is connected to your right ear or your left ear or your right eye or your left eye. I'm going to not get the details of this immediately correct, but the general sense of the study I'm going to convey accurately. And they did something such as tell a person in their right ear to like pick up a hammer or something. And they did. And their right hand reached out and picked up a hammer, and like they would then ask the left side of their brain, like, why did you pick up the hammer? The answer is because they were told to pick up the hammer. But the other side of the brain would concoct some completely fabricated but convincing story like, oh, it was the shininess. The shininess caught my eye and I wanted to pick it up. No, it didn't. You made that up. Your brain made that up, and you convinced yourself that that's the case. You thought of the movie Turning Red because your brain concocted it, and then you made some story to convince yourself that that was the case. We've verified this in scientific studies that this is the case, but I think we're still trying to understand what that really means for us. How much of our decisions are we explaining in retrospect and giving a logical flow to it that didn't actually exist?
No, it makes sense. That makes sense. Now, I don't know if you believe in the disorder, oppositional defiance disorder. do you think it is possible if somebody has not even necessarily a disorder, just an opposition to authority or, influence, where you said, think of Red Panda, where they would automatically think of something and it's just a trigger in their brain that they don't want to go with whatever they're being told? Do you think that's a possibility where, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it just seems like there is a possibility that they may just naturally oppose manipulation, whether it's positive or negative.
Sean brought up the point earlier, like, what if I don't understand what you're talking about? You can't convince me. No, that's like a legitimate point. I think as long as you understand English and can understand the words, you're going to, by default, hear the words Red Panda, and that's going to create some kind of imagery in your mind. I don't think there's any choice in the matter. Now, if you're talking about a mental condition where like their audio, their audio perception is not connected to their visual center of their brain or their imaginary center of their brain, and they can't make those connections, yeah, maybe they won't think of anything. But I don't think that's because of any cognitive disorder they have, other than the fact that like that part of their brain is broken. Okay. I don't think this is going to get even more off topic, but there's like the idea of Pascal's wager, right? Which is like, God may or may not exist. There's more of an upside in believing in him, because then you get the benefit of he does exist, but you don't lose anything if he doesn't exist. Now, I think the major flaw with Pascal's wager is that you can't convince yourself of something you don't believe. You don't have the control over your brain to do that. Let's take God out of the equation. Let's say the thing is 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 does equal 4. If you have any understanding of the world, you realize that to be the case. If I said you will go to heaven if you believe 2 + 2 = 5, you're not going to heaven, because you cannot make yourself believe that 2 + 2 = 5. It's not possible for you to do if you understand the reality of the situation. So I don't think we have, in the same way that I'm using that as an evidence to prove that we do not have control of our beliefs. We believe things and then we define them and understand them and convey them, but we don't choose what we believe.
Yeah. That just kind of blew my mind. So yeah, I guess I would have to agree. There is no free will, and it's not necessarily like I thought earlier you were referring to like our laws and restrictions, but it's also just the fundamental nature of existence. That
we are.
Yeah, I don't know
this conversation.
I don't know if I agree with that though, because like, I mean, you're saying that's a learned thing. Like 2 + 2 is 5. I mean, 2 + 2 is 4, obviously. But I'm saying, like,
I was gonna say, man.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you were no, I'm saying, like, if you were never taught something, then how are you going to believe that? Maybe you're a different culture or something, or like you don't. Like I said, kind of going back to what I was saying is like you don't understand the question. What happens if you're a child or something? You don't know. Like, how are you going to manipulate a child that doesn't know the answer? That's what.
Yeah, I maybe I wasn't clear. Like, if you understand that 2 + 2 = 4, you can't be convinced out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think the default there is that you would understand the answer to the question. If you don't know what that means, I don't know. Would you be able to convince yourself that 2 + 2 = 5 if you don't really know that's the case? I don't know.
Yeah. If it was a learned behavior from the beginning, then yeah. Oh, that's a good point too. Freaking Sean blowing minds over here. Oh man. But yeah, I don't know. Now I'm gonna have trouble sleeping tonight, thinking like, am I gonna be able to have any free will ever, or are the laws of physics limiting my ability to think for myself?
But you know what, Mikey, you don't have control of what you think, so you don't even bother thinking about it.
Yeah.
We definitely got to get you back on, Ryan, for sure.
For sure, man. Might have to have some other people at your level.
Yeah, like even Lauren keeps commenting. Well, it'd be cool to have Lauren on too at the same time.
Yeah, get Lauren on here. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also want to switch it on you guys next time. We need to ask you some more questions. I feel like I was doing too much talking this time. We gotta switch it up, make it more conversational.
Yeah, for sure. We'll just talk about like, you know, dumber things like shady skates and stuff like that. But no, it was a great conversation. Yeah,
for sure.
It was, and your background, like Sean hasn't for a while now had just the guest up. You know how he does the solo shot? He hasn't done that for a while, but I know it was that fucking blue background you got going, the blue and the wood going.
Yeah, these lights are, I don't know if I could do it right now. I probably won't even try it, but they're like RGB lights, so I could switch them live from my app if I wanted to. We had these lights when we were investigating it, Dar Mine, when Mikey was screaming at the top of his lungs and scared those fishermen. But yeah, no, I love taking these lights with me on paranormal investigations because they add such a mood to the experience that you just can't match.
Yeah, for sure. Well, outside of, going with us doing the lives, do you have any projects or anything you'd want to promote?
No, I mean, I want to promote what Bump in the Night Society is doing. We have a lot of great events coming up. I am attending that you guys are hosting, and I'm happy to be a part of. Sean, do you want to run down some of that stuff? What can people get involved with?
Well, we have our public this Saturday. We have Wildwood Sanatorium public coming up. I don't even know if I told you guys.
How many tickets do we still have on Wildwood?
I'm not sure how many we're selling. Jen set that up with Brooke, so I'd have to find that out. I know we still probably have about half left.
We got
open. I'm not exactly sure what the number is. But then also, I don't even know if I told you guys yet. Carnegie Library, we're going to be having a public, I think in May. So that'll be cool too.
If anyone's coming out to the Ross House, I'll be there. I said Haas. That was such Pittsburghese. I don't even. That was terrible.
That Haas.
Our accents are wearing off on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to end this because I am losing it.
Dude, you're gonna go into work tomorrow and have all these like physicists, and you're gonna be like, "How you stayed day?"
Yeah, if anyone is coming out to the Ross House this weekend, I will be there with Kat Wilson. We'll be leading one of the tour groups around, so I hope to see everyone there. Sure. We have many more events. I think we'll also be going to Marietta, the Appalachian Con. Jen is going to yell at me because I said Appalachian. That's how I say it, Jen. I'm sorry.
I say the same shit. She gives me trouble all the time.
She's going to be commenting. Don't put it up on the screen when she comments. Yeah, so we'll be at that event in Marietta with you guys. I think there's a lot more coming up. So if anyone's going to any of the Bump events, feel free to track me down. I'd love to see you and talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're like part of the family. I mean, I don't know what to call you. You're like part of our family, for real.
For sure. So now when we go on investigations, we got to try some more nerdy stuff. You and I got to come up with some nerdy experiments to do.
Mikey, I'm sure that we are going to be finding the sketchiest crawl spaces and holes and cubbies to be crawling into.
I know. Usually before we started working with you, I was the one that would do the craziest shit. You have taken that. I'm a dad now, so I'm like, you know what? I'm fine. I'll let Ryan do all the crazy shit now.
We'll shove some magnets in you or something, Mikey.
Yeah.
We started the conversation talking about how it's inspired by CKY and Jackass and stuff, and I think I'm still continuing that in my paranormal investigations for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Creeping up on hibernating bears. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. It was amazing.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Can't wait to see you Saturday, man. It'll be a good time.
Hell yeah. Where's Luther at, Sean? Come on.
Thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can find us here, and here, and here. Don't forget, everybody needs a little bump in the night.